Hi, Christina.
Hey Lisa, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm out of the
Good.
cabin enjoying myself.
I see that you were so lucky to have that space where you can just go and
Yeah.
relax and enjoy and I see it's nice and sunny where you are right
A
now,
little too
which is
sunny.
beautiful.
It's a little too much
Nice.
for the for the Zoom, but yeah, it's beautiful. We're on the water. It's sparkling out there. The dogs have been running on the beach. Now, two of them are just kind of snoozing on the couch behind me, and it's been great. So,
It sounds so rough. It sounds
oh
so
yeah,
terrible. It really does.
literally, the only thing I need to do is to record these podcasts today. And then,
Nice.
yeah, the rest of
Good
the
for
time,
you.
the next couple days is just chilling with my sister and enjoying our time. So that's good.
Good, good. Because I know you've been crazy, crazy busy these days. So it's kind of nice to be able to have a place where you can just go and get some good solitude and some
Yeah.
nice R&R, well-deserved
I'm
R&R.
thank you. I'm so grateful for it. This is one of the places on one of our first dates. Chris actually brought me here. And I spent the night. I stayed in here. He stayed outside in the little, we call it the wee house that has bunk beds in there and had the wood stove going and I could hear the waves all night long. And I was just like, yeah, this I could get used to.
Nice, nice.
It's my happy place. So I'm always happy to come back here for sure.
Good, good
Yeah.
to hear.
So, but before I get to settle in, we're going to have a chat with someone who is pretty well accomplished for being as young as he is. And I am very excited to talk to Aaron Davis today. So,
Same here, same here.
yeah.
For those of you who might not know who Aaron is, I actually first came across him during a holiday baking championship, and that's going back to like 2022.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, he was, oh, how old would he have been? Like maybe 22 years old? Crazy. And I was just so incredibly impressed with not only his baking chops and how creative he was, but how composed and calm and cool and collected he was at such a young age.
Yeah.
And
Pretty impressive.
obviously in a situation where I think most people can describe it as pressure cooker when you're on one of these competitive baking shows.
Yeah.
And you would think he's a seasoned pro.
I
And
mean, he is now.
now, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward like 4 years later, and he's been on Food Network shows times, four times.
Four times. That's pretty impressive.
Very
I-
impressive.
I'm excited to talk to him because he started baking when he was 4 years old. So this guy has more baking experience than, well, not you and I combined because you did start young also, but then lots of people
Still,
that
yeah,
we have talked to.
absolutely.
And
For
he's
sure.
only in his mid 20s. So
Yeah.
very excited to welcome Aaron Davis, and we hope you all will enjoy our chat.
Yeah.
Welcome, Aaron.
Welcome, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's one of my days off, so things are just kind of going as they go today, taking things easy on my days out of the kitchen.
Yeah,
Yes.
cool. And still, like, your brain probably never stops working, though.
Oh, no, never.
Yeah.
That's one of the fun parts of working in the industry is I'm always kind of immersed within it, especially with my social media and whatnot. And there's still people at work, so I'm still getting those messages and whatnot. So, how are you
Yeah.
both today?
Yeah,
Doing
we're good.
well.
We're
Thank
excited
you.
to be here speaking with you.
Yeah. I'm out at my family cabin, so I'm sitting here on the ocean, just enjoying the sun coming in and
Oh, that
yeah,
sounds lovely.
it's very lovely. I'm very grateful that we have the ability to come and visit here and stay for a couple days. But yeah, I'm also really excited to be able to chat with you today and get to know you a little bit better. So
Well,
Mhm.
I'm
thank you.
excited to be here.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
And you're coming to us from Phoenix, right?
Yeah, Phoenix area. I'm actually in Surprise, so I'm a little outside of Phoenix. But the fun thing we say here in Arizona, it takes an hour from you to get from Phoenix to Phoenix. So,
Pretty much, right? And that's so true. Well, we have some family in the Phoenix area as well, and it's so true. Like within like a half hour to an hour, you get everywhere and anywhere within Phoenix. It's just it's crazy. But what a great place to call home. Um, most of the times when it's
Depends on the time of year.
yeah, it's a little
It
toasty in the
is
summer.
March. Yeah, it is March, and we're about to hit 105 next week. So that means
Oh,
this
That
summer is
is
going to be pretty rough.
yeah.
You know what? I bet in spite of that though, I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially today back east, they're in the middle of another storm, a snowstorm, where I think there's one in was it Michigan? They were expecting something like 30 inches of snow today.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, see,
Like two and a
I'm
half
so good
feet.
on the snow. I lived in the opposite temperature when I was in school, and going outside and it being single digit and water being frozen over and there being snow on the ground. Being there for 3 years, I was like, this is enough for me to know that I never want it again.
So you're good. You're even good with the 105 in March.
I'm not great with that, knowing that it only has hotter to get as we creep into the actual summer.
Mm.
Um, it
But if
I've
you were
learned to
gonna
kind
choose,
of deal with it
yeah.
and make the best of it, but it's not fun.
Well, did you grow
No.
up in Surprise?
No, so I actually grew up in California. I lived there for
Oh, okay.
14 years, and then we moved out to Arizona. But I'm used to moving a lot. My mom grew up in she was a military brat. Her dad was Air Force, so they kind of moved every 2 years. So that kind of trickled over into my immediate family. We've moved a lot. So I remember three distinct houses in California, three or four distinct houses or apartments in Arizona, and then my family. I ended up staying here after I graduated because I was in a relationship at the time, and then they moved down to Texas and they lived in three different houses in Texas, and then they've been back in Arizona for almost a year now,
Wow.
and they're about
Yeah,
to move
lots.
again.
Oh wow.
Still in
Can't stay in
Arizona,
your life.
but you know,
Yeah. Well, I think you know what? I think that's actually a really cool to be able to do that, right? You're not really establishing really deep roots anywhere in particular. And I find
yeah,
that, the memories are made with people and not necessarily a house or where you live. It's kind of where life takes you and the people
yeah.
around you at those times that really entrench those lifelong memories.
100%. That's definitely been kind of my sense of home because, like you said, I've lived in a lot of different houses, lived in a lot of different apartments. Even when I was in college, I think in all of the living situations on campus, I moved 7 or 8 times because I was an RA on campus and I kind of had to go wherever the availability was for me to fill that
Mhm.
slot.
Right.
So I'm very familiar with moving. I'm very familiar with the concepts of kind of having to start fresh, meet new people, make new friends, reestablish yourself and whatnot. And I
Yeah.
think that's been very reflective in some of the ways that I approach food and cooking and storytelling as well.
Yeah, that makes
Right. I
total
was gonna
sense.
say, I'm sure that that really helped you in the shows that you've been on because you aren't necessarily feeling as, you know, shell-shocked by the fact that you're in a completely different place with people you've never met before. You just kind of adapt and adjust and, fly by the seat of your pants, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
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 So,
And I mean, and look at this. You graduated high school in 2016.
Mhm.
We'll start there. You graduated in 2016, so that makes you 27, 28, somewhere in there. You've been on
Mhm.
4 Food Network baking competition shows, and you're not even 30 yet. That's like so
We're
crazy.
getting there.
I
it'll
know.
come fast, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
does.
It's
It
it's
does.
coming faster than you would I would say it just time flies really quickly. It comes faster than you expect. You hit those landmarks. It's like, oh, 25, quarter life crisis. Okay, you kind of expect yourself to have a certain level of establishment within your career and your personal life, and then it just keeps on coming. You blink and you're almost 30.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
blink again, and then you're going to be almost 40. And then you blink again, and then, it's crazy. It is unbelievable how fast life does fly by. And so it's really cool that it looks like you're taking every single opportunity that is being thrown at you to really have fun and make such an impact and live out your dreams and fulfill your lifelong passion of baking and being able to showcase that with all of us who are big fans.
And to be able to help other young up and coming bakers to be able to
100%.
move
Yeah.
forward. Yeah.
I certainly try to take all of those opportunities. And, I will say having done the food media and the shows has certainly opened some doors for me. Some of these opportunities just came from the privilege of having been able to go to the Culinary Institute of America and just some of the brands that have good relationships with the campus and tagging them on Instagram that kind of foster those relationships. I've been working with Perfect Puree now for 6 or 7 years doing recipe development for them. I've done photography for one of their calendars. I did
Amazing.
videos for them last year for the Pastry Arts Virtual Summit, which was a really cool opportunity. And I mean, for me, I think just the accomplishment with that in itself is I'm pretty sure I was the youngest presenter for that, so that was really cool.
Ah,
And then same thing, getting to work with brands like Satin Ice and Rodell Vanilla and I will say the other biggest thing I think in regards to working within the Food Network Syndicate and those shows is just like the people that I've met, the people that I've gotten to work with, the relationships that have fostered from that, knowing people in a lot of places and the opportunities that have come from that. Something that I always talk about, as much as it sometimes is a struggle, depending on your social pattern and whatnot, is just the power of networking and
Mhm.
making those connections and taking the opportunities that come from those as well.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, it's been wonderful to see you kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of grow up in front of our eyes as we see you on all these shows over the last number of years, right? I think the first time we saw you was in 2022 in the Holiday Baking Championship. And again, fast forward 4 years for basically a show a year you've been on. So I'm expecting by the time you're in your 40s, we'll see you every year for on different things. That would
Are
be
you gonna put
awesome.
that on him, really? Oh, low
I mean,
expectations, Cristina.
no, I get it just
Oh,
because
oh,
like I've kind of had that kind of happen, year after year. Um, I feel like I've almost grown to expect that of myself now a little bit. Obviously, I don't think I don't think I'm gonna be out of sorts or anything if it doesn't happen. I don't compete on a show this year. And I even got to a certain point last year where I was like, maybe I'm not going to compete on a show this year, and I'm fine with that. And then, of course, as soon as I kind of made peace with that, I'm on vacation there, and I get a call like, "Hey, we're working on a show. Are you available on these days?"
nice.
And because I was on vacation, I didn't recognize the number and I just let it go to voicemail. But then as soon as I listened to the voicemail and I heard the name, I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. I think I've talked with her before and I should probably call back now. So I did. And then within the week, I was filling out paperwork and talking to my chef work like, hey, I'm going to be gone for X amount of time to go do a show, just an FYI. And then what? A month and a half later, I was flying out to Canada to start filming.
Wow, that's
Amazing.
just, I mean, it's
Amazing.
great that you are able to do that with your work, that you can
Mhm.
say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just going to take this time off. I'm going to go film, come to Canada. Welcome. Hope you had a good time. Hope it was
Yes, I
good to
hope you
you.
had
Oh,
fun.
it was beautiful. It was nice because it was still during the summer here, so I got to escape the 100-degree weather for another few weeks.
Yeah.
It was nice the area that we filmed in just because everything was within walking distance.
Hmm.
And I will say the food outside of what we were served on set, everything was lovely. And the hospitality was great as well. There were several restaurants we went back to multiple times.
Yeah.
And again, I think the biggest experience or my takeaway from Sweet Empire in particular was a lot of the people competing on the show were people that I grew up watching for like
Wow.
14 years. So just
Yeah.
Oh,
going from watching them compete on other shows to being in the same room, competing on the same level with them, and being able to hold my own was
Mm.
just a huge feat in itself. Getting to meet them and be like, hey, I've watched you on X, Y, and Z show, so this is super cool for me. And I was the youngest one there by almost a decade.
Wow.
And just getting to be there and talk with them and hear their experience and watch them work in the kitchen. Obviously I'm under a time crunch too, but just like being able to watch what they can do and what they bring to the competition was such a cool experience.
yeah, so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Did
so
they
wonderful.
underestimate you?
Um, I think maybe in the first challenge, people were kind of like, "Oh, we have more." You kind of see it a little bit in the show. Some of the banter back and forth were like, "Oh, we're the old school, you're the new school," that type of thing. I don't think that it was ever necessarily an underestimation because I think we all recognized once we all got there and saw who all was in the room that we all deserved to be there. All of us had kind of made names for ourselves competing on other shows and our work and presence online and whatnot. So it was definitely more so kind of once we got into the kitchen and specifically with this show, watching each other work, watching how we hold ourselves as we work and the type of person we are as we work and how that would kind of build the dynamics of the different empires as you progress throughout the competition.
Yeah. And you know what, in fairness, you've probably been baking longer than some of they had as well. Like you started at a really young age, right? You were, I think, 4 when you started baking.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely photos of me in diapers in the kitchen with my parents.
Wow.
As to the level of baking we were doing, I remember a lot of box cake mixes, which there's nothing wrong with that. Those are pretty solid bakes, and I have a lot of fond, very nostalgic memories with those things. And I think it's really funny because a lot of big name pastry chefs, you hear them talk about it on baking competitions as well. Everyone loves grocery store cake too. It's good stuff. It's hard to beat. Obviously, there's something to be said for the homemade stuff where you can tell there's the time and the energy and the level of ingredients put into it and whatnot. But that's kind of where I started. But especially with my grandmother, she taught home ec on a junior college and middle school level. She owned a bakery when my dad was growing up. Um, so I was very familiar with the homemade pies and the breads and cookies and stuff like that in the kitchen. And having grown up in California, we had access to a lot of fresh produce, so she
Yeah.
preserved and she canned and she made jams out of a lot of that stuff. So I grew up with a lot of that as well. So there are certain bakes that I'm very picky about just because I've had that experience. But that's definitely where I would say a lot of my foundational knowledge came from.
Wonderful. And then at what point, growing up and as you were finding your love and your passion for baking and creating these beautiful creations, at what point did you decide to make this your full-time career?
Oh.
Was there a catalyst
Um,
or,
See, I don't,
did you
the
have a
thing with that is
moment?
I'm not sure that there was ever a moment that I'd ever considered something else.
Okay.
My parents talk about as soon as I learned how to use the remote, I started watching Food Network. So for me, people are like, "Oh, I've been watching Food Network," and I'm just like, "Okay, but like, how far back are you talking?" I remember when it was like Barefoot Contessa, Everyday Italian. I remember when like Mario Batali had a show and Michael Chiarello had a show, Sarah Moulton. I remember How to Boil Water. I remember Semi-Homemade Cooking with Sandra Lee. Like when I say I used to watch Food Network, that's what I loved about the network when it was like one chef in the kitchen, they're teaching how to cook. And,
Mhm.
having grown up where they've taken such a huge swing into the competition side of things, and it's much less like, let's learn something from one person in the kitchen. I will say there have been different points where I feel like I've been disappointed in how much that's changed just because I missed that part of it. A huge part of why I got into baking is that it's so science heavy,
Mhm.
which is part of why I find it so fascinating. And I bring a lot of science and math into the baking that I do. I write on our stainless steel tables and whiteboard markers at work. And when I'm converting my recipes and I have notebooks that I keep notes in, I talk a lot about like the reactions between ingredients, especially when I'm doing conversions or when I'm adjusting recipes or when I'm recipe testing, and that um, I think you can even see a little bit of it when I'm competing on TV. I wish there was a way for me to kind of do more of that or bring more of that into my approach to those bakes. But, there's just like the time crunch and the inspiration. So it's hard to do some of that. Um, but I don't think there's ever, I mean, way to get off on a tangent. I don't think there's ever been a point where I have considered something other than baking as my career path.
Incredible. And then as far as the competitions go, in high school, you entered a competition to win a scholarship to the Culinary Institute, right, of America,
Yeah.
and won.
So well, it's not that type of competition per se. So it's an organization called CCAP, Career Through Culinary Arts Program. And I've been involved now for about a decade. I graduated from high school and became an alumni in 2016. Um, and it's not a nationwide program. Arizona is the only statewide chapter. So there's 40, 50 plus high schools involved in Arizona. Otherwise, in other states, it's just like a city chapter. So there's like CCAP LA, CCAP Philadelphia, CCAP New York City, but there's only Arizona is the only like CCAP Arizona. So basically, the way that they function is they work with high schools and they work with students, teaching them basic knife skills, sanitation principles, moving with purpose in the kitchen, basic kitchen techniques and etiquette. There's a lot of networking involved in it. There's different events you get involved with locally that are like fundraising events. So like in Arizona, our biggest event is the Harvest Moon Festival, and we have all these high schools that come out. They partner with local chefs. We have a night under the Harvest Moon with drinks and sponsors, and people attend the event. We do an auction, and basically each high school with their chef partners, and they make one bite of food for people to eat. People vote, and then we have a panel of chefs that go through and try all the food, and then one high school is awarded the People's Choice Award, one high school is awarded the Chef's Choice Award. And that's just one example. But the primary function of the organization is every year, wherever they have the chapters, they have a competition where the high school students prep. And it's basically, like I said, sanitation skills, knife skills. For preliminaries, they have to do specific cuts. They have to make a French omelet, and then they have to make a cucumber jicama pepper salad. For finals, it's changed. So I'm not 100% precise on what it is now. When I competed, we had to do a pan seared roasted airline chicken breast with a mushroom chasseur sauce and tornado potatoes, and then crepes with pastry cream, chocolate sauce, and strawberries. We had to do 2 plates of each, one for tasting, one for presentation. And then
Lovely.
No
with
pressure at
that,
17, 18. No,
yeah,
none at
no,
all.
no pressure, none at all. Um, but then if you competed as a junior, they award top 10 juniors and they get to go to a boot camp to Monroe College where they basically kind of get crash course working on some techniques and all that stuff, what it'd be like being on campus, being in the industry and whatnot. And if you're a senior and you're competing, as long as you make it to the finals, you're promised some sort of scholarship money. And a lot of that, it depends on your performance on the competition. And you have to go through some interviews with like the CCAP board and the chefs, responding to questions. You have to write an essay. But then a lot of that also depends on your GPA in regards to scholarship eligibility.
Right.
So they award anywhere from local scholarships to in-state schools, grant money. They do some internship awards. They award some traveling abroad opportunities to learn specialized cuisine. But then they do award up to partial tuition scholarships and then full ride tuition scholarships for in and out of state schools. And the one that I was most
Amazing.
interested in was the Culinary Institute of America. We had toured the California campus just because that was closer. And as soon as I toured the campus, I was like, this is where I'm going. Whether I get the scholarship or not, this is where I want to be. You know, the campus in California is in an old Christian Brothers winery, so there's just a lot of history to the building and the area itself. It's in St. Helena, so it's in the Napa Valley area. So for miles either way, once you leave the campus, it's just vineyards and wineries and such rich food culture out there. So then after I competed and with my GPA and having gone through the interviews and the essay writing process, I was awarded a full tuition scholarship for my associate's degree to go to the CIA. And being that the New York campus is the headquarters per se, that's where I went and studied, and I lived there for 3 years because then I stayed for my bachelor's afterwards, and I graduated in 2020, height
Oh,
of
great
COVID.
timing.
Yeah, great timing.
Yeah, COVID grad.
Your final exams
Your
are
I
like,
last 3 months, probably, right? In COVID.
actually, we didn't leave campus until March. And the thing that was really disappointing was we had 12 class days left.
oh, yeah. That's so frustrating.
That was it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we had finished everything else. We had just done our presentations for our business planning course. So we had one kitchen class left and we had to leave campus.
Wow.
I was very fortunate in that situation because I was so close to home. So I drove out to campus. So it was easy for me to pack up and leave.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of my friends got stuck there for a bit while they were trying to arrange flights back to the East Coast and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, I still wouldn't have changed it for the world. It was just unfortunate timing.
Yes.
The other
Yeah.
thing that I will say
Totally
is
beyond control.
I was lucky and I decided to walk early. So I got to walk for graduation in December. And
Oh,
my thought process there was, okay, well, one, I skipped a semester because I had enough credits from high school. Because I took IB courses and I transferred those credits in to get a lot of my liberal arts classes out of the way. So then I just had to worry about like the kitchen and industry bachelor courses and whatnot. So I just swapped around my semesters. I did my second and fourth semester while I was on the New York campus, and then I did my third semester last, so then I wouldn't have to worry about moving on to the New York campus, moving on to the California campus, moving
yeah.
back onto the New York campus, and then coming back to Arizona. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'll just walk early, get that out of the way, and then it
That's
worked out
fabulous.
anyways.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
worked out very, very well because, yeah, you really did not want to be on the East Coast anyway at that period of time.
No.
Pretty bad in New York. It was really
Yeah.
the most difficult things about it. Yeah. Go ahead,
Now,
Chris.
as far as timing went, like you finished all your classwork and everything right in the middle of COVID. So how was it after that? Because obviously the world virtually shut down, and certainly from a hospitality standpoint, the world did shut down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take us through that journey and what happened after grad.
So when we graduated, because we didn't really have like a graduation ceremony per se, because of what happened, my chef at the time on the California campus, he arranged for my 11 classmates and I to have like a graduation speaker. And he's good friends with Duff Goldman. And so we had an hour and a half long Zoom call with him where he kind of spoke to us. We got to ask questions and whatnot because he graduated from the California campus.
Okay.
And one thing he had said to us was, obviously it's unfortunate being the time that we graduated was during COVID, but that kind of uniquely poised us in a position that once things started to open back up, we had the ability to kind of reestablish ourselves and change some of the direction that the industry was going in. So I think that was hugely helpful in regards to mindset going into that period.
Mm.
That's a
I
great
will
way of
say,
framing that
Yeah.
and taking that potential real huge heavy negative into like a
yeah,
real positive on how to move forward and navigate.
100%. And I think that was helpful for me, along with some of the classes that I wrapped up my bachelor's course with. Um, because, truth be told, I will say 2020 was a pretty tough year for me and mental health.
Oh, wow.
I graduated, and obviously, my job that I had established here, no one was traveling, and especially because Arizona was in the news for a really big outbreak. We particularly were impacted with travel here. So the resort that I worked at, everyone got furloughed and then eventually laid off. So I started working at Walmart, which was kind of easy for me to jump in. I knew that I had dependable hours.
Mhm.
Two of my younger brothers worked at that store at the time, and my mom has worked for Walmart for 30 years. So it was kind of easy to jump in there and have something going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As much as my aunt phrased it, it was soul sucking work, which I 100% would agree. It really, for lack of better terms, it sucked working there. But I kind of looked at it as an opportunity just to focus on cake decorating, kind of not necessarily brush up on those skills, but focus on those skills in regards to the things that I could practice in regards to improving pace, improving how I build cakes and how I stack cakes and how I ice cakes and all that stuff. Um, I went through a pretty tough few periods of burnout creatively that
Mm.
year. And I will say one of my last courses for my bachelor degree was called Pastry Concepts and Design. One of the last projects we had was the art of pastry. And basically, the assignment was we had to go out and talk with a local artisan. We had to kind of pick their brain and their philosophy and how they approach their medium. We didn't talk with any pastry chefs. We talked with people that did pottery, that make plateware, that do ink drawing, painting, photography. My partner and I for that project, we spoke with a local florist, and
Mm.
she kind of talked about how she puts bouquets together, no more than 4 to 5 things in a vase, only uses things that are in season, only uses local product. If people have their events and the flowers look fine afterwards, she'll take them back and she'll reuse them. She works with a lot of local companies and she kind of like swaps things. So she'll like get product from them, she'll give them flowers and whatnot. And then the vessel that she puts them in always comes secondary to what she's putting in them. So the whole point of this project was to kind of take in the things that they told us and reflect that on a plate of food. So my
Love it.
partner, in addition to reflecting the flowers on the on our plate, we really wanted to reflect her philosophy as well. So we really wanted to make sure we were using local ingredients, things that were in season. If we were using fruit, no more than 4 to 5 things on the plate. And if we were going to do that, we wanted to make sure we were reusing some things, keeping in mind the shapes we were using on the plate to minimize waste and things like that. So it was a really cool project in looking at other mediums and how they can reflect through the lens of other mediums.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
think during these periods of burnout during COVID, I started looking at other art mediums like painting, acrylic painting, clay work and sculpting, and how can I use these same principles and techniques, but through the lens of a cake artist.
Yeah.
And I think that really changed my perspective. I think it's really reflective on how I approach cake decorating now, and became a huge part of my signature style. But then also just helped me push through those periods of breakout in regards to finding new creative inspiration.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that even a little bit bleeds into how I develop flavor profiles, where I'm not afraid of using savory ingredients or things you wouldn't normally be like, oh, that can be used in a dessert. Um, but I would also say some of that's reflective of my experience of having worked in Tennessee while I was in school for 1 semester. Um, but yeah, it was a tough time to be in the industry, having everything so abruptly come to a halt.
Way.
I
Yeah.
will say I do think that it changed some things for the better in regards to some of the treatment of staff from customers. I think a lot of people really started to put their foot down about some of that, where it's like, if you're not going to treat my staff with respect, you can't eat here. We don't want your
Mhm.
business. Um, and I think it definitely changed some of people's perspective in regards to like sanitary practices and washing your hands, which is always going to be such a huge thing in the industry. And I always look at people, I'm just, I don't understand how, like, you go to the bathroom and you just see people come in and out without washing your hands. And it's like,
I
I can't. I
no,
can't.
no.
why? That is the easiest way to make someone sick.
Yep. Yep.
And
It's
I will
horrible.
never be able to wrap my brain around
I know.
No.
What do
it.
they
I mean,
think?
it's
Oh,
such a
my germs
basic.
don't matter. Mine are clean germs.
Yeah, but it's so basic. I mean, is that not basic? Like you learn that in like before kindergarten. And
Yeah,
certainly,
exactly.
it is one of the things you do learn in kindergarten if you haven't learned it before. But it's mind blowing. How many
Yeah.
people don't?
Yeah. And I mean, like, even on social media, you see so many people want to harp on people that work in the industry. Oh, you're not using gloves. Do you have any idea how often we wash our hands?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
I get
that's
a
one of
little
the things.
something on my
Yep.
hands, I'm just, oh, gotta go wash them now.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason why my hands are always dried out and
yeah,
cracked and bleeding and whatnot, because I wash my hands so often.
yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
All
true.
those things on social media when people are like, "Ew, you're decorating that cake without gloves," and it's just like, and as
And
a nurse, I'm like, do you know how long those gloves last? 5 minutes. You can wear a glove for 5 minutes and it's already breaking down. It's got micro tears. All kinds of things are getting in there. And then there's people that are wearing gloves for hours on end and touching everything with their gloves. And it's like that is so much less sanitary than
yeah,
just washing your hands regularly.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
The other thing is, like, a cake artist, it's hard. Well, I mean, some people can do it. And I'm just like, the people that can deal with having gloves on when they're working with things like fondant, buttercream, all the power to them. For me, I'm just like, it's so much easier to like accidentally do something and not know, just because there's that additional barrier between your hand and the material. So it's like, oh, I accidentally swiped the cake. I didn't know, just because my glove was hanging off my finger just this tiny bit, and I didn't feel it touch the cake. Or when I'm
Yeah,
working with fondant, it leaves extra wrinkles in the fondant. I'm just like, I'd rather be able to feel it with my hands, just because it's an easier process and I know how it works, how it's going to look, how it's going to lay, and all that jazz.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. Yeah.
I think the only exception for wearing gloves is like when you're working with chocolate, I find, right? Because otherwise when you're working with chocolate, you can leave
Fingerprints.
your fingerprints on there and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that would be the only time I usually take out gloves actually is when I'm
Yeah.
doing chocolate or if I'm working with like nasty food coloring,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
you're
That, or
splattering.
obviously with ready to eat food. If I'm putting something out that someone's about to eat, I'm going to put gloves. But
Mm,
that's beside, that
yeah.
should just be standard industry practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Wow, wow. Incredible. Like it's amazing. Again, I'm just so impressed with you, Erin, and your sheer amount of experience that you have at such a young age. But more impressive is like your journey on these TV competitions. Like, what made you decide to go that route? Because obviously, it sounds like you're starting to build up a really nice career, and with your experience going through the Culinary Institute, and you've got your whole career and whatnot in front of you. TV, like, tell us a little bit about that journey and what made you decide to get into that. And I think your first one was the Holiday Baking Championships.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many talking points on food TV. Um, I think first and foremost, it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. Having grown up watching food TV, I think it was planted early in my head where I'm just like, oh, I would love to be able to do this someday. So as soon as I got out of school and I started having casting people messaging me, I think the funny thing about that is whenever it happens to people, and especially now that I've done shows, I have friends all the time that message me like, oh, I got this DM or whatever. Whenever it happens to you for the first few times, you're like, oh, this is a scam. This isn't real. So you just
Mhm.
like write them off. You don't pay attention. And so like the first few times it happened to me, I was like, oh, this is just someone like pulling my leg. This can't be a real thing. But then like after it happened a few times, I was like, okay, you know what? Let me look into this. Let me do my research. Let me make sure this is like a real person, that the company that they work for is legit and whatnot. And I was like, okay, so this is real, you know. So then you have the conversations, you have the Zoom calls and whatnot, and then it finally starts to like, oh wait, no, this is like actually seriously a real thing. And after having done my first show, I think the big thing there for me was like, wow, we finally got here. We're doing it, being on Food Network.
After all those years
And
watching them.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
and the other funny thing is whenever people ask me about that, I'm just like, oh, the first handful of times I went through casting, like I got told no. Or I mean, like I didn't actually get told no. The thing is with it, it's once you get through a certain amount of interviews, it's like you'll either hear back from them if they're interested with you, or you won't hear anything at all. So it's just
Right.
like, okay, I got through those interviews and then I just never heard back. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's a no, you know? So like I had gone through casting for spring baking championship 2 years in a row, didn't hear back from them, you know? And then the third year when I went through casting for holiday baking championship, I can't remember if it was a casting person or if it was just a friend that I talked about going through casting. First and foremost, a tip that I always give people, if it's a holiday or seasonal specific show, set the scene, set the mood. So like because I was casting for a holiday show, I put on a Christmas sweater, I put like
Nice.
a wreath and a few decorations up behind me, so it really kind of sets the scene, sets the mood, gives them a sense of, oh, you're really in this because you put in a little extra effort,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um, so after I was cast on that, it was very much like, okay, you know, at the time I was working at a local bakery. I was a cake decorator. So I was okay, now I have to tell her like, hey, I need like 2 weeks off from work, potentially three, to go film this thing. And in my head, I was making it to be this big deal. I'm just like, oh, what if she says no? Like, what if she, like, I can't get the time off? Do I have to quit to go do this? You know, and they were very supportive. And, you know, I announced the team, like, hey, I'm going to be gone because we want to film a show. And, you know, everybody made a big deal about it and
Of
whatnot. So I
course.
go film the
Yeah.
show. And it's crazy because we're doing a holiday show in the middle of like April and June, not April, May and June. So like,
Yeah.
you know, it's snowy, Christmas trees and all that stuff inside. And then you go outside to the nice sweltering Tennessee humidity. Because at the time they were filming in Knoxville, Tennessee. Just that juxtaposition was wild.
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
Yeah.
I will say I was lucky because on that particular season, I came into it and we met in the lobby the first day, and I knew someone that was there because we had gone to school together. We didn't have classes
Cool.
together. We were
Yeah.
different graduating classes, but we actually went to Zumba class together.
And
I helped
I love
instruct
Zumba.
Zumba while I was on campus, and she was like, "Oh my God, Aaron, is that you?" I was like, "Jessica, what?" So like, of course they
great.
played into that. They're like, oh, old school comrades and whatnot. And it's funny because some people, obviously, because people have their opinions and feel the need to voice them online, some people are like, I don't think they're actually that great of friends. I think they secretly don't like each other that much. And da 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 da. And I was like, whatever.
Why do
Um,
people do that?
but I
Like
don't
here's
know.
another thing you learn in kindergarten. If you don't have anything nice to say, just zip it. Like why all the
I don't.
negativity, right? Like
It's
what's the
it's funny
purpose
that
of
you
it?
say that just because like now that I've done 4 shows, I think it's really changed a lot of my perspective on TV and how people talk about things online, how people interact with the media. It's this crazy parasocial relationship because people will watch you on the season, and I think the thing that people forget is that there's hours of footage that they have to choose from that they narrow down. And the way that I always phrase to people is like, look at it this way: we go in for our first bake and we have like 2.5 hours, right? And we start at the beginning, there's 12 of us. So there's 12 times 2.5 hours. We go in for judging each, and that's 20 to 30 minutes that we're in with judging because we go through, we have to explain our inspiration, we have to tell our story, explain what we went through in the kitchen. You know, the judges ask us questions, they're trying it, they're asking us questions. Each of them give us feedback, positive and negative. And then we go into interview for an hour to an hour and a half each. And
Hmm.
then we do that all over again for the second challenge. And then there's cold reads to open the episode in between the challenge, wrap it up, and then there's elimination. So they have all of this footage and they cut it down to the 42 minutes that you see on TV.
Uh,
Right, right.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between reality and reality TV and
Mhm.
forget that just because this is a food competition, that it's not they think it's not reality TV. So people
Mhm.
watch the show and they take everything for face value, and they're like, "Oh, I know you now that I've watched you for 8 weeks for this 42-minute segment." So like I'll respond to people and they'll say thank you, and they're like, "Oh, we're besties now. We're gonna have conversations about food all the time. I'm gonna text you whenever I'm baking. Here's my life story. Let me ask you all these super invasive private questions and stuff." And I'm just like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You
Oh,
don't know
wow.
me. You
Yeah.
don't know me at all.
You mean
Whether
we
you
don't
take
know you? We don't know
whether
you?
Christina,
I
stop.
mean, like very,
I'm just kidding.
very
I'm just kidding.
surface level, you
Yes.
know, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they always, obviously, because in TV it has to be entertaining, they have to tell a certain story. Someone's gonna get like the villain at it. So like I did Halloween Baking Championship and I got the villain at it that season, and I'm just like, it is what it is. We signed a contract that gives us ability to speak out against how we're portrayed.
Yeah.
We relinquish that control to production and how they choose to tell the story. So I'm just like, whatever. But that
Mhm.
season, I was given the villain edit. So every week on Reddit, people were just like, oh, we hate this guy. He's done TV before, so he has an unfair advantage. He thinks he's better than everyone in the kitchen. He's conceited. He's condescending in how he talks down to everyone. He's so mean. He's a know-it-all, this and that, da, da, da. I'm just like, whatever. You guys can think whatever you want. I think it's
Yeah.
more arrogant of you to sit here and act like you know me based off of an edited television show than it is, however, I'm being portrayed on the show. But
I really
again,
like that
that's
you can
beside.
allow that to roll off your back because
Yeah.
man, when I was younger, even up till recently, that I am constantly worrying about what other people think of me. So I think that would be the hardest part for me is is putting myself out there and then not caring what everybody
Oh,
is
well,
thinking about
I
me.
mean, like I've dealt with a lot of adversity in my life, being biracial, being openly queer, you know, being having neurodivergence, and growing up in a mixed family with my mom who works and my dad for a large part of my life was a stay-at-home parent.
Right.
So like I've dealt with a lot of that stuff early on in life. And just getting to this point, I'm just like, look, you can take me as I am, or you don't get any of me at all. That's your choice.
Love it.
Yeah. And
And the other way that I kind of jokingly talk about the way people talk online, I'm just like, I love a good fan theory. That's all it is.
There we go. Yeah.
nice. That's such a healthy
Um,
way. Yeah. It's a healthy way
because like
dealing with
if
it.
I read all of these things and took all of it to heart, I would never be able to do another show again.
Yeah.
True.
And I mean, like, going through the process of filming a show is already enough because and the one thing that I will say is when I did Halloween Baking Championship, because I'd gone through Baking Championship ahead of once before, I was able to kind of like warn people about certain things and about certain parts of the process. So like we
Mhm.
all met on day one, and I was like, I'm just gonna warn you all now, and 2 days from now, we're all gonna be bawling our eyes out during the first elimination. And
Yeah.
everybody was like, what? You're crazy. And then after the first day on set, everybody's like, okay, we understand. Because like you're
Yeah.
thrown into this situation where you're
Mhm.
in an unfamiliar kitchen, there's time constraints, you're baking for people that you've been watching and looking up to for huge parts of your career in your life.
Mhm.
There's a camera person in front of you, and then there's another like 8 to 10 cameramen in the middle of the room getting other shots.
Mhm.
You're fighting, well, not fighting, but like competing between other people that you don't know and their skill set for
Yeah.
ingredients, for equipment to be done at certain times, to use certain things. And
Mhm.
obviously, you don't want to make a fool of yourself. You have to be able to talk while you work. You have to be able to like banter between each other while you work. And you're going to get thrown random ingredients or types of desserts that you may or may not be familiar with, you've never done before. When I
Yeah.
did Holiday Baking Championship, first challenge right out of the gate was pavlova. Never had made pavlova in my life. I knew what it was, so I knew hypothetically how it should work. And then, mind you, we're doing this in a humid Tennessee summer.
Right.
So
Right.
that
Yeah.
also adds another level to it. Um, but it's just all these different things. So, like, the way that we phrase it is it's trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And so you quickly form this relationship with everyone. So when you're at the first elimination, you can't help but like you reach this huge emotional peak because you've also been tired and stressed out from competing for the past 2 days filming this episode. And it just
Yeah.
like all comes to a head. And then everybody cries because you're like, wait, somebody's already leaving. We literally just met.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
for the toughest. And that's one of the toughest things we've heard from, other bakers that have been on baking competition shows that we've chatted with. And that's, I think the worst part is having to send somebody home because you do like you trauma bond so hard, so quickly that it's the saddest part of every single show.
I mean, when I did Holiday Baking Championship, we got to a certain point where a lot of us were almost like, maybe it would just be easier if you sent me home because then I don't have to deal with saying goodbye to other people.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
But
you still in touch with a lot of these people that you were on the show with?
Yeah.
Different
Yeah,
shows?
I still talk to people all the time. I just this past week, Bill was in town visiting, and I went and spent an evening over there, catching up, hanging out, and whatnot. Later this summer, I'm going to visit with Zakia, and I'm super excited about that. I talk with a lot of them every once in a while. I text Samara probably the most and keep up with her. Um, I visited with Aisha last year. She was in town because work brought her here. I went through casting with a show last year with someone, with Charles, who was on one of the other teams when I did Holiday Wars last year, and that show ended up being tabled.
Oh,
Um,
no.
it is what it is, you know,
Happens. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
showbiz.
Yeah.
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 Um,
Literally. Yeah.
and then obviously, you know, it's nice because when I did Halloween Baking Championship, Joel's in town. He works like right down the road from where I'm at, so I get to catch up with him every once in a
Nice.
while. Um, and then I just kind of like catch up with people, talk to people, bump into people, depending on where I'm at, if I'm traveling. So it's nice. Um, this summer, I am going to CookieCon, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to get to catch up with my cooking friends that I have worked with in person, but then just like a lot of them that I've met within the Food Network community online and become friends
Fine.
with. So I'm super excited about that.
That sounds
Super
like so
cool.
fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously you caught a bug to do these shows, and you went on to do a number more. Do you see more in your future? Is that something that you really enjoy doing, or would you prefer to have your own show at one stage?
I mean, I certainly hope to do more shows. I enjoyed a lot. The one thing when people ask about it, I would say the thing that keeps bringing me back is the people. Um, just like the people that I compete with, you know, it's so nice to be surrounded by other like-minded people that are just as passionate about pastry. And I think the tricky thing about working in this industry is that when you have other friends within the industry, you all work a very similar schedule. So it's not always easy to stop and have that moment to connect. So like when we do the shows, for me, they almost function as a little bit of a break from my reality or my day to day because it's not like I'm in the kitchen working. It's like we're all in this kitchen, you know, and obviously each show, the dynamic is different. Um, but it's just being like put in a situation where you're surrounded by other super talented people that have different perspectives that work in the industry and understand.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
It's such a rewarding experience just to meet all of those people and then walk away with, you know, all these new friends and whatnot. But even working with the set crew, the production staff, everyone is super nice. And I think contrary to what a lot of people think going into it, they want you to be successful just as much as you want to be successful. You know, they're there to help and support us and point us in the right direction. You know, when we need things, they'll try their best to get it to you, or they keep rotating the dishes so you have clean equipment and whatnot and on
Amazing.
set, you know. Uh, a lot of the times in between, they'll be like, oh, hey, we tried this thing that you made yesterday or that you made earlier and it was really good. Like people are arguing over who gets to take it home, da 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 da,
Nice.
you know, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, so like it is a very obviously competitive environment on set because everybody wants to do well, everybody wants to win. And I would say more than anything, everybody wants to at least not be the first person sent home.
To go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
that is
we
the
all want to see each other do well. Like when you see those nice interactions where someone's giving advice
Mhm.
or when someone's tasting something for someone, those are all very genuine interactions. And I would say that was one thing that stood out the most for me when I did Holiday Baking Championship is like, you know, you see like the Great British Bake Off, for example, and everybody's so lovely and so nice and it's such oh, what's the word?
collaborative.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative environment, you know, and then you see that as juxtaposed to American competition shows where that's definitely not
We have
what you
said
see
this
on TV,
before.
you
Yeah,
Yeah.
know. But the
Although
reality
it's
of
not.
it, the reality of it is that's what it's like on set. That's just not what makes it to TV.
right,
Yeah.
because of the edit. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not cutthroat either. I find that a lot of the baking shows, There aren't a lot of times where people are like purposely trying to like put obstacles in your co-competitors' ways or anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people, I
Mhm.
think overall are very helpful and they are cheering on each other during these competitions, regardless
Yeah.
of what the prize would be or where they're being filmed. I think the baking community in general is very supportive. It just is. It's such a great family kind of atmosphere,
Mhm.
wonderful
That
community.
just shows the power of editing, right? Because
Yeah.
depending on the show that you're watching, I mean, people have different ideas, like
Yeah.
Aaron was
I
saying,
mean,
how
like a great example that I always use for people is during interviews. When you go and you do these shows, you have like your episode outfits and then you have your interview outfit. For your
yeah,
interview, you wear the exact same thing every time you're in an interview. So that means they can take clips from any interview at any point of the filming process and plug them in wherever they want to tell the story they want because you always look the same.
yeah.
Interesting. See all the behind the scenes that we never knew existed.
So, like for me, for example, because I talk with my hands, one thing that I always have to be very cognizant of is making sure that I'm wearing the same rings, or if I have my watch on, that's the same.
Right.
Or example, on episodes where like I work with something and I stain my hand, they'll always be like, "Hey, you can't talk with your hands because there's a stain on your hand." Da, da, da. So like, sit on your hands, so stuff like that, just to keep continuity.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it
So
is fascinating.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So if there was so you've done the 4 shows so far: Holiday Wars, Holiday Baking Championship, Halloween Baking Championship, Sweet Empire, Winter Wars. Is there one on your bucket list that you would love to do one day?
Oh man.
Or would you like to go back to one of the shows you've already done
I mean,
again?
I would love to be able to do baking championship again. I feel like that's complicated just because one, I didn't expect to get to do it a second time to begin with.
Mhm.
It's I would say rare that you see people compete on baking championship more than once.
Hmm.
Which was I think something that kind of played into my villain edit on Halloween Baking Championship because a lot of people were like, "Oh, they just brought him back so he could win. The judges love him and this and that." But I'm just like, again, whatever. I
Because you're
personally
a
don't.
talented creative baker. No, no.
What can I say? I mean, look, like I personally don't think that it was that great of an advantage outside of I have an idea of how the timing works. Because
Mhm.
outside of that, I'm still given the challenges the same amount of time that the other bakers have. I'm still putting
Yeah.
this in a kitchen where the pantry rotates, things move around, certain things are at my station. We're all competing for ingredients and equipment and whatnot. I still for judging, it's still a random order. We don't know what type of dessert we're going to have to make. We don't know what the flavor options are going to be, you know. So there's a lot of it that's still completely left up to chance. And at the end of the day, the way I always phrase people is it takes one mistake and that can send you home. So
Yeah.
like if I'm not consistent with the baking that I'm putting out for the judges, I can still be sent home with one mistake, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
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 Um, so there's so many factors that go into your success on being on a show like that. But I don't know. I just like the hustle and bustle in that kitchen and the progression of the competition. Um, I it's interesting just because they've changed some of the format of those shows with the most recent seasons of Halloween and Holiday Baking Championship, which I'm sure you've seen so many opinions online from different people watching. I certainly have my opinions of it. Um, but I don't know. I just enjoy competing on those shows. I
Yeah.
enjoy the friends that you make on those shows. I would love to be able to do spring just because I think that that most aligns with the style of baking that I like to present. And I will say that that was definitely a difficulty for me when I did Halloween. The judges were like, "You like presenting like clean, refined, pretty desserts, and that's great. But this is Halloween, so you got to
Yeah.
like step out of that box." And
There's
so
some
it took
chaos in
me
there.
a few bakes to kind of figure out how to still present desserts in the way that I would like to present them, but then also meet the criteria of this being Halloween and what the judges were looking for.
Yeah.
So I think that spring baking championship in particular would lend itself most to the way I like to present things.
The clean,
And especially
fresh.
from like a flavor profile
Mhm.
standpoint as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
next.
I just keep hoping that maybe they'll do like an All Stars, or they could do like a Halloween Baking Championship back from the dead, or how they've been doing like the different themes for Spring Baking Championship would be like Spring Baking Championship Renewal or Rebirth or something, and they can
Yes,
phrase it that way as like an All Star season. But I
that's a
mean,
Yeah.
great idea.
they've done All Star season for other shows, so why not with Baking
Why
Championship
not?
Yes.
Yes,
too?
Why
for
not? Why
sure.
not? So true. So true. Well,
Well,
that's very cool.
I think it would be a good time for us to pretend we're on a game show and move into our this or that section
So
of
that, all right.
Are
the
you
show.
game, Erin? Like,
Are
generally,
you
there's not.
game?
Are you game to play a little game with us?
I am game.
Awesome.
Woohoo!
Let's do
So,
it.
pretty easy. We're going to ask you a couple of things. We'll ask you for your opinion on what you like best.
And she,
Sometimes,
go ahead.
I was
What you
going
were
to say, sometimes there might be a little judgment, but it's
She's the
all
judger.
fun.
She judges.
It's
I
all
never
fun.
ever judge.
She does.
Mostly because I don't want people to not like me. But right.
Okay, so when you ask me these questions, am I elaborating or are these just like quick fire, no explanation?
You can. We'll ask you follow-up questions,
We
but you
do
can
like
certainly
elaboration.
elaborate. Yeah,
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 for
yeah.
sure. For
All
sure.
right.
I mean, we do. Okay, let's just we want a straight answer
Yes.
with a follow-up.
Well, sorry, you're only gonna get gay answers from me.
Okay, we want a quick answer, a quick short answer. Oh, you're not
And then
short.
the opportunity to follow up.
And the
Okay.
opportunity to follow. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Number one.
Wow, we've overly complicated this. It's not that hard.
It's really
Okay.
not complicated. Go
All
for it.
right. Number one, coffee or tea?
Coffee to drink, tea and bakes.
Yep,
Oh, I
that's a
like
very good
that.
answer.
Yeah, good answer. Okay,
Yeah.
so coffee drinker. What's your go-to?
Cold brew, normally at work because it's free.
Huh?
Uh,
That works.
Do you go to work quite early? You start your day quite early?
um, normally my shifts start around 8.
Okay.
Not too
Except
bad
for when we
for.
do, the only time that that's different is on event days, and then that just kind of depends on the type of event. If it's a lunch event, we just work a normal shift. If it's an evening event, we go in between 12 and 3. And if it's a breakfast event, then I go in at 2 a.m.
Yikes.
Oh, okay.
See, it's funny because I'm historically not a morning person, and I've always hoped that the longer that I work in this industry, that that would change it. It has not. I still hate mornings, but I love my 2 a.m. shifts. I get 4 hours in the kitchen. I'm the only one there. It's quiet.
That's
I
nice.
can listen to my music. I can just get what I need to get done.
You can sing.
Um, I mean, I do that whether there's people there or not.
Yeah,
Um, but then I also get out early, and that leaves me part of my day
Yeah,
left
that's
to
true.
do things
yeah,
outside of work if I need to.
Yeah,
that is
that's
true.
true. All right. And baking with teas. What's your
Mm.
favorite tea to bake with? Or do you have a favorite?
Mm, I don't think I have a favorite because I use all sorts of teas. And it really just depends on what I'm pairing it with or what kind of dessert it is. Like I'll use black tea, Earl Grey, jasmine. I love using white tea every once in a while. I'll use chamomile. I'll use chai. I use some specific blends from a brand that I like. I really like Harney and Sons. And I use some specific blends of their Paris tea blend. So it has like vanilla, black currant, some caramel notes in it, and I love using that with like berries and chocolate. It's one of my
Mm.
favorite tea blends to bake with.
Oh,
Sounds
that
Um,
sounds
wonderful.
nice. I wish we could get that here.
Yeah, no kidding.
but I would, if I had to choose a favorite, I would probably say jasmine or Earl Grey. I
Okay.
think would
Yeah.
probably be
Yeah.
the most present in baking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
agreed. I mean, I can see that for sure. All
I
right.
love tea bakes too.
Me too.
Mhm.
Sweet or savory?
Mm, probably sweet. I
really.
mean, like it's what I do for a career. And like because I'm always surrounded by it, it makes it easier to say no to bigger portions of it. Because obviously I'm
Okay.
trying so many things throughout the day. But
Yeah.
like it's just one of those things that I know that I'll never be able to get away from. I always like there's one thing about me, I will never deny myself a little sweet treat at some point in the day.
And
Okay.
what's your favorite? What's your go-to?
Ugh.
Or
If you
something
were,
that you
That's a
can
hard.
never turn
See,
down.
the elaboration questions are always the harder question.
we never said it was going to
Because
be,
they're not yes or no
Hmm.
did we?
questions. They're not this or that. They're please
Uh,
We
expand.
want to know more. Please tell us
that's
more.
such a hard question. I mean, like, if you'd asked me in school, I would have said creme brulee because that was one of those things where whenever it was put out on the dessert buffet, it didn't matter how full I was, I'd be like, I'm eating one of those.
Hmm.
Um,
How about something like if you were out for dinner somewhere and you were reading the dessert menu, what would be the one thing that you would never be able to pass up?
But that depends. It depends on what sounds good. It depends on what flavors they pair with it. I'll look at a dessert menu sometimes like, oh, chocolate sounds great.
Hmm.
Cheesecake sounds great. Something fruity sounds great. But then I'll be like, oh, but this sounds really intriguing, or this sounds like something different that I've never had before, I would have never heard of or thought of to do. So like it really just depends on how the dessert menu reads.
Okay,
Okay.
let's
All right.
pretend. Okay, I'll take two of my recent creations and I will present them to you, and you will tell me which one you want. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Pistachio stuffed pistachio, raspberry, and white chocolate cookies,
Mm.
or coffee cheesecake creme brulee.
Ooh, coffee cheesecake creme brulee.
Okay. I really like that one too. I ate three of them. I should not have eaten three of them, but I really like them.
Look, sometimes you just gotta commit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really. I was like, well, I
absolutely,
don't need to
right?
eat anything else today. That's all.
You got your dairy in there.
Yeah, you got lots of
I don't
delicious.
know. I
Some
mean, like,
dairy,
I think the thing for me
eggs,
with it
protein.
is pistachios. They're either a hit or miss. I feel
Hmm.
like it's one of those things where it's like if you know that there's pistachio in it, you're like, okay, I tasted pistachio. But if you
Yes.
don't know, it's a hard flavor to distinguish.
That's why this have like the stuffed, like the pistachio paste inside. So you get like a full-on bite of pistachio flavor in there without the
There you
crunch
go.
necessarily. But anyway, those are
Cool.
those are my recent inventions that I really enjoyed. So
I
that
mean, look, I would eat either.
okay,
I
good.
just think like if you put coffee cheesecake creme brulee in front of me versus cookie, I'd be like, well, I go that one.
Okay. Yeah. I think I agree with that too.
There you
All
go.
right.
All
What's
right, next
next?
one. Bread, cake, or plated desserts? What's your
Like,
favorite thing
am I choosing to eat this or am I choosing to make this?
to make and bake? We'll do a two-part question.
Mm,
We're going to keep that pressure on you.
okay. She said bread, cake, and plated dessert.
If you could only bake one thing moving forward, what
For
would
the
it be?
rest of for the rest
Yeah,
of your life.
yeah.
No,
That might
Okay.
hopefully focus it down a little bit more. What do you really love to do?
When you say bread, do you just mean loaves or that is all encompassing
all
All
bread
breads.
encompassing
items?
breads.
Okay, okay, okay. Mm,
I'm thinking which one's most
that's
sciencey.
hard. Oh man.
We really made this a difficult one.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going
Well,
to be
that
that
that that's so
difficult.
hard just because like each of them, I think there's different skill sets, but then there's
Mhm.
also completely different approaches in regards to flavor building and presentation. Like I would say out of the three, cake is most lending to like a creative perspective just because of the mediums that you use to decorate a cake
Yes.
that you wouldn't use for either of those other two. I think out of the three of those, for me, the most fulfilling to eat is bread just because there's so much
Yes.
time involved.
Hmm.
And I think the way that I talk about bread is like I mean, you start with water, salt, yeast, flour, and you can
Mhm.
make so many different types of bread.
Just down.
It's something that's it transcends language barriers and cultural barriers because every culture defines bread differently, but at the end of the day, everybody uses it. They break it at the table together. They use it to kind of clean up their plate and dunk in their food. It's such
Mhm.
like a pivotal part of the eating experience.
Mhm.
I feel like I would have to probably go with bread for those reasons in regards to making.
Okay.
Good.
Eating. Ugh.
Eating.
I feel like I would still have to go with bread just because
Yeah.
there's nothing like a nice warm fresh piece of bread with a little bit
Mhm.
of butter.
I
And I mean
know.
like my favorite food is soup and bread just because again
Oh,
there's so many different kinds of soup, so many different kinds of bread. I could eat soup and bread every day all day. So good. Um yeah, no, I think I would
Okay.
have to go with
yeah.
bread. And I
No,
mean
that's
one thing that I
Strong.
always tell people is like they're a fresh from the oven, still warm, melted chocolate in the center, chocolate croissant. There are
Mm,
very, very few things in this world that can top that experience.
yeah,
that is true. Very,
that's
very true. Yeah. All right. I feel
so
like I
good.
know the answer to this one already. Baking as a team or on your own?
Individual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
I
Well,
mean,
based on your early morning answer,
Yeah. Yeah,
being by
I
yourself.
exactly.
mean, it's 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 complicated. And I mean, part of this definitely I think reflects for me on a personal level for my TV show experiences where it's just like the team shows are fun
Hmm.
because you get to work through the lens of other mediums and perspectives and create one cohesive piece, which I think is really tough accomplish or tough assignment.
Mm.
Um, but I think at the same time, it's so much fun being able to like bounce ideas off of each other and you all
Hmm.
get excited about like once you come to an agreement and whatnot. But at the same time, it's also difficult going into the competitions and one having to rely on other people, but then also having that pressure of people having to rely on you
Yeah.
being able to
Yes.
perform and bring certain things to the table. My first team competition experience with Holiday Wars was particularly difficult just because this is the first season that they incorporated cookie decorating into the competition. And I didn't know that going through the casting process. I thought I
Mhm.
was just auditioning to be a baker for the team because they had historically always done cake decorator, sugar artist, baker. So then they were like, "You've been cast as your team's cookie artist." I almost withdrew from the show
Yeah.
because I have always deliberately avoided cookie decorating in my career because it's not something that I enjoy. It's not something that I'm super familiar with. So going into this competition and knowing that that's the medium that I have to showcase
Mhm.
was really tough. And I would say like the worst my experience with imposter syndrome competing on a show because I'm just
Right.
like all of the other cookie decorators at cast, that's all that they do. That
Yeah.
they have cookie decorating businesses. So I'm just like, I mean, thank you for having the faith placed in me that making that casting choice would work out, but also why?
Yeah. Why? Did you find out how you got cast as the cookie
No,
decorator when
no.
no?
I asked so many questions going into this. I'm just like, I need you to be so completely explicit with me and what you're expecting, just so I know how to prepare myself going into this because I don't know what to do.
Wow.
And so I had to kind of lean into that, just being the fact that I knew that because my experience with Cookie was completely different from everyone else's, I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to use that to set me apart because I'm going to, by default, approach it differently than everyone else.
Yeah.
So my thought process was, how can I incorporate other types of cookie into this that aren't necessarily like a decorated cookie? So I use spritz cookies and I use tuile cookies and other things to
Nice.
add texture and dimension and
Yeah.
decoration to the
Art.
pieces. I did lean into some of my cake decorating skills when it came down to using royal icing and stuff like that to build texture and to like
Yeah.
build up scenery and whatnot. But then the other thing that I lean to is like I will take care of all the tasting elements. No worries. I That is something I do feel confident in, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
was able to
Wow.
do
Yeah.
that at least.
That's a
Yeah.
great
But
way of pivoting, right? And kind of working, leaning into your strengths as opposed to like the traditional, elaborate piping and decorating and
Yeah,
yeah,
Royal
I can do
icing
the
work.
cake with
cooking.
buttercream.
Yeah.
Great. Royal icing. I know how to make it. I know some of the science behind it. Do I know how to get all the consistencies you need to decorate cookies? Not really. Am I super familiar with putting on a cookie? No. I'll do fondant with royal icing embellishments.
Yeah. That's
Nice. Yeah.
brilliant.
That's
Brilliant.
perfect.
Hmm.
Next question.
Next, baking with fruit or baking with chocolate?
See, they're difficult and difficult questions sometimes.
The problem is like both those lend them so lend themselves so nicely to working with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Sorry, Aaron. We
but
didn't mean to do
if
this to
I
you.
if I had to
No.
choose one, I'd probably go with fruit.
Yeah.
Just because like I feel like if I had to bake, I'm assuming that this hypothetical is like you get to choose one or the other, not both. So like if I'm choosing chocolate, I can't bake with fruit. I think the problem with chocolate is that if you don't have other things to balance that out, like the acidity from fruit, it becomes too rich very quickly, which I think
Hmm.
there are other things you can use outside of chocolate to bring that balance to fruit desserts.
Yeah.
Very, very good
That's
answer.
yeah,
Yeah,
really, really. Yeah. I and 100% agree with you on that. Right?
100%.
Like the chocolate on chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. It's just like that's just a lot of chocolate.
Like, don't get me wrong. I think that there's a time and a place for it, and I think like a chocolate heavy rich dessert is great every once in a while, but it's exactly that. Once in a while when I'm
Once in a
really
while.
craving something chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Nope, that's totally fair.
definitely. I agree. All right. Halloween or Christmas baking? No spring baking allowed.
Christmas.
That was
Christmas.
Christmas. Yeah.
I think
very
just
easy.
like the memories, the traditions are much deeper there with my family than Halloween. I've
Yeah.
always loved Halloween, and that's always been a big holiday for me personally. My family is kind of like whatever. Like I love the decorations and whatnot. Like you can see like my face pie up here
Oh, yeah.
that
Oh
I
yeah.
decorated when I announced doing Halloween baking championship, and I love
That's
getting to do like the SFX makeup and kind of
awesome.
some of that stuff. But I think there's so much more just from a storytelling perspective, from like a cultural perspective, and a sense of family for me in Christmas baking.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, was there something like, does your family have like a special Christmas bake that is makes an appearance every single holiday season?
I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily, and a large part of that is just because like I've talked about a little bit, like I come from a working family and my mom works retail, so it's a difficult time of year for her.
Mm.
Um, but I would definitely say that there are signature bakes of mine that come out every year for the holidays. Like I always do my Pfeffernuss gingerbread cookies. I usually do raspberry mulled wine Linzer cookies.
Oh,
Um, and I would say the other thing I usually do like some iteration of a Black Forest cake at some point.
Nice.
yeah. Oh,
Yum, yum,
I'm,
yum.
I mean, Christmas kind of just happened, but all that stuff is making me think I want to have Christmas again soon.
No kidding. No.
All right. Most
It'll be here
excited.
before you know
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. Like you said, time goes,
it.
and the older you get, the faster it goes. Everybody says that, but it's really true, and it's kind of
Yeah,
sad.
yeah, yeah, really.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Most excited to bake for Duff, Nancy, Carla, or Yolanda?
I
Dead
think
air.
Carla. I
Oh,
think
Carla's a
Carla,
Yeah,
and I think a
such
large
an
part of that
icon.
is like even when you just watch her and you listen to her talk about food, I think so much of her perspective comes from like a flavor building standpoint, but then also just a balance of flavors and a balance of textures. I just like love interacting with her, having baked for her twice now, just like the amount of personality she brings to the room and how animated she is when she talks. She's just so much fun to work with.
Yeah.
I bet.
Dude,
She's
did
a
you get a
firecracker.
dude? Yeah, did you get a dude from her at any time? Do you remember?
Honestly, I can't remember. It's
Yeah, I don't remember
possible.
either. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that really stands out for me, and this is something that she said that didn't make it to air, was when I did Holiday Baking Championship. I can't remember what I was presenting, but she was like, if baking doesn't work out for you throughout your life, never stop telling stories just because you're so eloquent about the way you speak and it just translates to the food that you're presenting to us. So just keep telling stories.
That's
Oh, that's
amazing.
lovely. Yeah.
And to have that exposure to these greats, these baking greats at a young age must have been like so cool to learn from them, to take their feedback. What a great experience. I mean, worth the price of admission to go on these shows, I'm sure. Not that you have to,
Price
pay
of
on the,
admission.
you know what I mean, though.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
A figure of
Um,
speech. Like just such a great experience to have access to them and pick their brains and to
mhm.
hear their feedback on what you're presenting to them.
I have
Yeah,
found an
100%.
answer that Carla gave you a dude reaction when
Yeah.
Oh,
they
she did?
tasted your eggnog flavor, peanut butter and chocolate. It says a bake that featured eggnog flavor with peanut butter and chocolate and multiple textures. This is Chat GPT though, that's helping me.
We'll have to go back and check it out.
The combination
See, the,
impressed the
the thing
panel.
the thing is the thing is I'm just like, I don't remember doing any eggnog bakes.
Well, it's Chat GPT, so
Yeah. But it also might have been one of those added flavors. Like, here's what you need to bake. And then,
oh yeah,
Jesse
maybe.
Palmer comes in and says, hey, you know what? I know you're baking all of these cool things. We
And
need
it's
you to add
almost done,
eggnog.
but yeah, we're just gonna
Yeah,
throw
we
this
need
in
to
there.
add in an eggnog flavor.
I'll ask for
Well,
some clarification.
I remember the very first challenge, one it was like the head-to-head cake versus pie, and one of the flavors was eggnog, but that was Rochelle and Drew.
Hmm.
I don't remember. The only drink that I remember being like a twist was when we had to do mulled wine during it was the international episode where we had to each incorporate mulled wine into our bake
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
main heat bake.
And you already had
And
a list you could have done.
for me, well, for me that worked out just because. Oh wait, yeah, the first episode we had to incorporate cookies, and I was like, oh well, I'm already doing cookies, or was it snowflakes? I can't remember, but I was doing cookies, and I was like, that'll be easy. But like the when they had us do the mulled wine, I was like, oh, I've already made mulled wine once on the show, so everybody's like, Aaron, what spices do we put in the mulled wine?
Got it. Okay, a little bit
Nice.
more information here. Says that it was da, 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 during a main heat in the episode where bakers had to make letterboard holiday dessert bars, and the twist was that the bars had to include homemade eggnog. And I said, but
That that was a
was
different
that
that was a
Aaron?
different season.
And
That was
it
a
That
says,
different
was a
season.
different season.
and then it's like, no, sorry, it wasn't Aaron. I'm like, okay, why do I even?
Chat
No, that was a
GPT.
different season. We had I was like, I don't remember. We didn't have to. I remember the challenge you're talking about, but that was not my season.
Yeah, because I remember that challenge and I didn't see your season, so I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, never mind.
Okay. All
Silly
right.
Chat GPT. Why do I even try?
I don't know. Sometimes they're just not, they're not accurate sometimes. It's
Yeah.
pretty good, but sometimes not so much.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. I asked it a question about current events and it told me, "Oh, that hasn't happened yet." I think it told me something like, "Oh, Trump is not president currently," or something along those lines. And I was just like, "Okay, not going to trust anything that you say." Yes, yeah.
How many different ways we can go from that? But we'll move on to
We're
the
just
next
gonna no, we
question.
don't need to talk about it anymore with that.
The next question, choux or macaron? What do you like making
Ooh.
most?
I prefer to make macarons.
Mm.
I think both of those, excuse me, I think both of those are very technically challenging bakes in regards to level of consistency. Both of those, when you're mixing the batter or your paste, when you're in the oven, the oven temperature, opening the oven too soon, there's so many things that can impact those. But
Mhm.
I think I prefer to do macarons.
Do you have a favorite filling for macaron?
See, I don't do macarons consistently enough
Hmm.
anymore. I remember when I was in when I was in Tennessee, my extern, I did macarons twice. One of them that I really liked was, I think it was chocolate orange Grand Marnier. But the other one that I really liked was I did a spiced purple sweet potato macaron with sweet potatoes that were from the garden on property. So that
Oh,
was
that
Oh,
really
sounds
cool.
cool. Wow, that sounds really
yeah.
good.
That does sound really good.
Hmm.
Yeah. I like the Grand Marnier. What sounds really good to me too.
Like a, it's like one of those Terry's chocolate orange
Hmm.
kind of flavor combos.
Yeah.
Christmas,
Yes,
Christmas
Christmas.
time.
Yes.
It makes me
Yes,
Yes.
thankful.
yes.
Don't smash it on the or crack it on the counter though. Don't do that with macarons. Bad idea.
No, 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 no.
Okay. Baking to music, kitchen karaoke, TV, podcasts, or silence. That's a this or that or
Definitely not
that or
silence.
that.
Okay, you said music, TV. I can't really do TV because then I'm gonna stop and watch. Um, you said music, kitchen karaoke, and podcast were the other ones.
Podcasts.
I mean, like if I'm listening to music, kitchen karaoke is happening. I would probably say music just because it's the easiest for me to focus still on what I'm doing instead of like stop and paying attention to what I'm listening to on the podcast. I
Yeah.
listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to audiobooks too, but I typically just do that when I'm driving.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
it's harder to focus when you're working on something in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Driving,
we've
easy.
yeah. But we've seen your little reels on Instagram where you're singing away. So you kind of you're getting
I
into
love it.
definitely into the groove of things. So when you're
Yeah.
baking.
The music and kitchen karaoke kind of go in hand to hand.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
That
Cool.
you
All
gotta have
right.
music.
And that brings us to the last this or that. Um, Raisins or in baking? Yes or no? Are you a raisin
Situational.
fan? Situational. Okay. So
Okay,
not in
well, do you
every
know what butter
situation.
tarts are?
I've heard of it. I don't particularly know what it is though.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So
Don't worry.
situationally raisins, where would you want to see them and where wouldn't you want to see them?
I don't ever want to see them in carrot cake
Yes.
under
Yeah,
any
agreed.
circumstance. I will say something that I have started to do is I will puree, well, specifically with golden raisins. I don't like regular raisins. If I'm going to put raisins in my bakes, I want them to be golden raisins. I've started pureeing them up and folding them into like a cream cheese filling to go in the cake because I like the flavor that they bring to it. Nice fruity, kind of like caramelly note. I just don't want the texture.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Oh, that sounds like a
Okay.
great
I
idea.
could get
so I'll
behind that.
puree raisins up into like cakes and fillings and stuff like that. Um, every
Mm,
once in a while, it's okay in an oatmeal cookie. Normally, I would prefer without. Um, but I will put raisins in things like scones and muffins. I would say
Hmm.
that's probably it in regards to things that I'm just like, yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
Okay. I think
Cinnamon buns.
No, we're in a perfectly good cinnamon roll.
Okay. Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, you passed, I mean, no judgment face from Christina, so it's very, very impressive.
What
Yeah.
can I say?
You go, we're still good. We're good. We're still besties, right? I
Still
guess, but we're
good.
Yes,
not. We're not.
absolutely,
Besties, but not.
You're
absolutely.
not besties. You
No,
don't
we're
know
not.
him.
I don't know
You
him. I
just
don't know
think that you
Aaron.
are because you watched him on TV.
Right? Right?
Well, we chat for an hour and a half,
So
and now
that's
he's
why
your
he
best
hasn't
friend.
answered all my DMs
All
to
your
him over the
instant
last
message. Yeah.
number of years since 2022. No, just kidding. It wasn't
Don't
me.
don't try to find any DMs from her. Don't worry about it. Okay. Um, what's a current trend? This we're done or this or that. That was the last question. So now we have a baker confession. What's a current trend that you secretly do not like?
I mean, most of them, truthfully.
No.
What current
I
trends are
don't know.
going
I'm
around
just
right
like,
now?
I mean, I would have to look for specific ones, but I'm just like, I've always been the type of person where I'm just like, I don't really care about what's trending per se. Obviously I'll talk
Yeah.
like, so I'm involved locally, the high school I graduated from. I go back every what semester or so for the high school for their CTE advisory council meetings. And, they always talk about like things that are trending within the industry and whatnot, to see what's reflective of what they're teaching on school. And like I'll talk about some of the general stuff, like recently mocktails have been really big, making non-alcoholic alcoholic beverages have been really big and stuff like that. But like when it comes to baking trends, I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff because I'm just like, yeah, that's fine and dandy and whatnot, but I don't really want to make a name for myself for following the status quo.
Right. Yeah. So no
Like
Dubai chocolate for
it's
you.
it's not like I've done some Dubai chocolate stuff, but
Yeah.
like doing something just because it's trendy isn't
Hmm.
fulfilling to me
Mhm.
unless it's something that's meaningful to me,
Yeah.
That's
you know?
fair. That's
So
totally
like
fair.
Agreed.
even with like when people decorate cakes, all of the bows and stuff, I'm just like, why? You're
The
putting
Lambeth
something
cake.
that's you're putting you're putting something that's not edible onto a cake.
Oh yeah. I don't like that.
So I'm just like, I think the bows are stupid. Like Lambeth, I love. I would say that's part of one of my signature styles in regards
Yeah.
to decorating cakes. I think people use the definition extremely and egregiously loosely, though.
Loosely.
I think
Okay.
a
Mhm.
lot of people
Yeah.
when they post Lambeth cakes, I look at them as like there's not enough
That's
icing on that to call it a Lambeth cake.
right.
Okay.
They just put
So
some bows on
And
them and then they say that
and I'm
that's
just like, I think a lot of
vintage.
people think vintage or Lambeth cakes, it's like you put one row of swag, you put a double border, and that's good. No, that's a cake with a double border and one row of swag. That's not Lambeth or vintage piping.
yeah, so you want to see like lots of ornate piping
I
on the
think
whole
the
cake
whole thing
all
with
over.
Lambeth cake is it very much leans into maximalism.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
Ornate.
you need to cover the cake.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
see it all. More is more on a Lambeth cake.
Yes, more and
He wants
more. More
to
is
do
more.
it all, not to see it all necessarily, but no ribbons that are non-edible. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like even you put ribbon around the basic cake, I'm just like, why?
I know. I
What's the
never get
point?
it.
Because now you gotta like take it
Take it
off
off.
and ruin the cake before you can cut it and eat it.
Yeah.
Ugh,
How
Yeah.
about
I
fresh
don't like it.
florals? Like fresh florals or florals that are not
See,
edible.
that's one thing is like I love flowers on a cake. I don't understand why more people, I understand that it's expensive, but I don't understand why more people don't choose to do fresh flowers. Like if you're getting fresh flowers for to decorate the venue, like pay a little extra to have them reserve some more to put on the cake. Like
Yeah.
don't have you're ruining the flow of the aesthetic by having fresh flowers in the room and then putting fake flowers on your cake.
Mm.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
I don't understand. They
Yeah.
don't look great. They don't look good. They don't look the same. So like why are you doing that difference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That makes total
unless
sense.
it's something that you specifically handmade and there's like an integral part of this choice to your cake and it means something to you, then
Hmm.
sure. But otherwise, just put fresh flowers on your cake. The one thing that I will say about that is I think a lot of people need to do more research in the type of flowers you can put on cakes because a lot of people put poisonous or toxic flowers on cakes and
Yep.
don't know
Baby
that.
spread.
Never good.
And the other thing is it it's annoying whenever I have to deal with florists that are like, "Oh, I'm gonna style the flowers onto the cake," and I'm just like, "I'm glad that you think you're gonna do that, but I'm the one that decorated the cake, so I would like to be the only one that touches this because it is my art." But then the other thing is, a florist isn't trained in handling food. I am.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know how to make sure that these flowers are put on this cake in a way that is safe to still consume.
Yeah.
Love it.
That makes total sense. And also, like, you're decorating it knowing that there's going to be flowers, that the flowers are going to be sitting at a certain area as well. So, like, if
Hmm.
it's, if you're doing like a different aesthetic or whatever, do you know what I mean? So, if you
Yeah.
have the vision of what that final product's actually going to look like, so it makes total sense for them to hand over that part of it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
I guess my remark with the bows, there's a time and a place for non-edible decorations. I just think the bows are tacky.
Okay. Gotcha.
Fair,
All
unless
right.
it's like a client request and you can't get away from it.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Obviously, like if the clients are requesting things and they're paying to have things a certain way, that is what it is. That doesn't mean I think that they're making a bad choice.
Fair enough. You're not going to
Oh,
be giving them the resting judgment face or an
No.
active
active
one.
judgment face. All right. This has been so much fun, but before we
Oh,
go, do you have a baking scrap for our listeners? So that would be a tip or a trick that helps them along with their baking, whether they're at the beginning of their journey or whether they are further along.
I think the biggest tip or trick that I can, or like from like a beginner standpoint, is learning how to read a recipe. Most recipes are going to be written in a specific order of how you add your ingredients, and based on that, you should be able to infer the types of techniques that you're going to be using. So, like if your recipe starts with your butter, your sugar, your eggs, that's typically going to be creaming method. If your
Mhm.
recipe starts with either all of your liquid ingredients listed out or your dry ingredients listed out, and then it's separate for the rest of it, that's usually going to be blending method. If you're starting with, your dry ingredients and then you're adding fat, that's going to be cut-in method. So like things like that teach you how to read recipes, and you don't necessarily need the instructions per se, but I think that's also reflective on how then you can look at the recipe and how can I make adjustments or make smart adjustments
Mm.
if I'm going to plug in ingredients. So like sugar, for example, if you're going to swap out for a different type of sugar, like if you're going to use all brown sugar, all granulated sugar, or add in coconut sugar or date sugar and stuff like that, you know where to add that into the recipe at an appropriate time. Um, or just, and I would say kind of in tandem with that is once you learn how to read recipes, being able to change ingredients for those recipes to impact flavor, to impact texture, to impact the appearance, where to impart flavors into different parts of those recipes as well, I think is really important in regards to developing your baking skills as you move throughout your baking journey.
Yeah,
Perfect. I think
amazing.
that's great. It
Amazing.
reminds me again of what Raffikat told us once upon a time, how baking is a science, and once you've learned the science of baking, then you can make it your art.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's something that has always stuck with me. And that seems like what you're saying. Like once you understand the basics of it, once you know how to read a recipe, then you can make those adjustments and changes as you go because you understand what it needs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you for being here with us today, Erin.
Yes.
It has been so
Of
much fun.
course.
I've
Yeah.
Thank you
really
for having
enjoyed it.
me. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed talking to you both.
Oh, thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, feelings mutual. We loved having you here, and we appreciate your time and your energy and all of your great advice that you imparted on all of us today. We hope to see you on our screens again soon. You'll have to keep us updated.
Who knows? Me least of all.
Yeah. Well, our fingers are crossed for a
You're like, what?
spring baking
Okay.
championship.
Because people tell us all sorts of secrets on here. So your secret would be safe with ours if you've got something in the
Oh
book
no,
right now.
I genuinely don't. I genuinely don't know. I've
Well,
had a
we
few
look forward to it
conversations
when
with
it,
people, but like nothing has gone anywhere yet.
nothing in
Yeah.
stone.
Well, we hope to see you on our screens again soon
Very
because you are
soon.
just so much fun to watch. And to any
Thank you.
naysayer out there, like, come on, like we're just doing.
Villain edit. Look at this face. Yeah.
And I didn't think you were a villain, honestly. Maybe some people did, or they see. Sometimes people see what they want to see, and but I didn't think that. I thought actually you were more confident and
Yeah, I would say that was the biggest thing, or at least how I felt going into that season, is
yeah.
I was more confident in my baking abilities and what I could bring to the table. And
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to do some more out of the box things.
Mhm.
So I was super excited to have that second chance to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. And really, for people who don't have anything nice to say, just or send it
Chip
to
in.
a friend of yours. Don't go, like, seriously. I mean, we want to make sure.
Keyboard warriors. Yeah. Type it out and
Yeah,
then backspace it all away.
exactly, right? If you have to do
Not
that at all. But
necessary.
I think I think the world is a much better place when you can see all the positives in front of you and showcase those or cheer on those things rather than being that, well, I didn't, whatever. The negative stuff can go out the back door as far as I'm concerned. Let's keep it a
Perfect.
positive space, especially when we're talking about baking that brings all of us great joy, whether we're
So much
doing
fun.
it, we're sharing it, we're eating it. Let's just keep it that.
Enjoying that sweet treat once a day.
Totally,
Yes.
totally.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm rants over. My soapbox is going away.
Ah, hilarious. Okay, well, thank you both again for joining me. Thank you, Christina, as usual. Thank you, Erin. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Erin.
Really appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you again for having me. Much
Of course.
appreciated.
Awesome.
Have a
Oh, this
great
is
rest
so
of your
fun.
day.
Yes, take
You
care.
too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, now that I'm no longer at the cabin, I'm looking back on that lovely discussion with Erin and I'm thinking, how nice that was.
It was so
Yeah,
awesome. He is
yeah,
such a good guy. And you know what? I love his confidence. I know he was saying that some people kind of misconstrue it and think it's kind of conceit or whatever. But I mean,
arrogant.
I think, yeah, or arrogant or arrogance or whatever.
Yeah,
Totally. I don't get that from him. I don't get that vibe from him. I
no,
think
me neither.
he knows who he is. He knows what he wants out of life. He goes and gets it. I think I applaud him for that. So
Yes, me
yeah,
too. Yeah,
yeah.
I think he's fabulous. And it's been great talking to somebody who can be that confident in themselves
Mhm.
at a young age, you know?
For sure. Holy man, right?
Yeah.
That is that's huge for sure. And you know what? It's worked for him because he's
Hmm.
been on Food Network baking
Yeah.
competitions 4 times. So obviously,
Yeah.
somebody sees a lot of potential and a
Mhm.
lot of obviously skill and talent and interest
Yeah.
and it's worked for him. So I look
Yeah.
forward to hopefully seeing him on our screens again.
Me too. I don't think there's much that's going to keep this guy down.
I don't think so either. And that's so cool. And like you
Yeah.
said, at such a young age to be in that position and to be so certain, I think is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not there yet. So
Yeah, same
well
here.
done. Well done, Aaron. Tell us the secret.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. You know, what a lost opportunity. We should have asked him
I
that.
know. He's like, please explain. How can
Can
I
you
be you?
help us? Yeah, exactly. Can you help us be more like you,
We'll have to
please?
have another conversation with him and just be like, all right, we're all ears. Tell us your secrets.
Yeah, no, no kidding. No kidding. But
Oh
oh well.
man. But
But
at
that
least we
was
had this,
awesome.
yeah, we had this really good conversation with him, and now we get to share him with the people who don't know him well, or the people who have seen him on TV and just
Mhm.
want to hear, straight from the horse's mouth a little bit more about him, not just watching
Yeah.
him in action. So
Yeah.
that was great.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the chat. I know we certainly enjoyed chatting with Erin. And yeah, until next week when we have another fantastic guest to share with all of you.
Yes. Thank you for joining us and happy
Happy
baking.
baking.